So, for those of you who do not know, I am John.
Chandler.
Chandler is a subscriber here at Brainstorm. You've been a subscriber for 5 years? Almost 5 years?
At least 4.
Okay.
Something like that.
Um,
Time just flies by when you're a subscriber.
I think so. So this week, or last time, we focused on Emerald Twilight.
Right.
Which was Hal Jordan going crazy, trying to keep his sanity, and the Guardians not preventing him to do so, sending people to stop him from getting to them and
saving what he had lost and trying to take back some of his, like you said, his sanity, his reality, bring back a little piece of his world, was denied, and because of all the trauma and everything, kind of pushed him over the edge.
He snapped. So this week, like I said, we're going to cover 0 Hour. I actually found something cool when I was going through some boxes in my basement to bring into the store, and that's the original. If we can't see it all on this, I'll find one online. It's the original promo poster for 0 Hour. So on that side, you see Superman surrounded by a bunch of Batmans, and then on the other side, it's the reverse. Batman surrounded by a bunch of different Supermans from different eras, different universes. I thought that was a pretty cool find. We'll get that framed and then hung up in the store here sometime soon. So 0 Hour. At first, you don't know that Hal Jordan's involved in this.
Right.
Before we begin, let's tell them what reading order to read this, since you made a mistake.
Normally, when you read any comics, you start with a 1, unless they have a 0, which obviously comes before the 1, so that takes place. So as I began reading it, I was using the DC Comics app, and how it was laid out, it had it flipped around, which sometimes happens. So I went, oh, okay. Just went to the bottom, started reading 0. Come to find out, that was actually the finale, and it is a countdown to 0 Hour, which would have made sense if I really thought about it. So you start with issue 4, and then you work your way down, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So don't start at 0, because it will take away all the build and up the event. So start with number 4.
Okay. And for those of you who don't know, this will also be very spoiler heavy. So if you don't want spoilers, you probably don't want to watch this video, but because we are going to go pretty in depth into everything that happened. Right. You said, though, by starting with 0, you still felt like you got a complete story, because you skipped the build up to the finale, but
right, because I did know how Jordan ended up. So the fact that like people were using a different name and throwing stuff around, like, that didn't faze me, because I already knew that information. There were little parts where I was like, this is a little confusing, but sometimes in an event crisis, a big thing, I know there are parts that there are little tie-ins, so I thought, well, I just chalked that up to maybe I just missed that. But in and of itself, there's a nice kind of build-up, climax, and then finale at the end of that book that I do think kind of is a testament to how powerful a last issue is. I know sometimes with big events, it can kind of fall apart somewhere in the middle there and piddle out towards the end. But this one, just on its own, reading the final issue first, it really stood up as a really good issue that I thought did really well.
So another thing I will say about the series is, the more steeped in the DC universe you are, the more impact it will have on you. However, I think if you start with this, it will also lead you to go backwards and read some of the things that impact that. And we'll talk about that as we talk about the issues. Right. So the first one was, like I said, issue 4. As normally happens, we have a Flash cover, because Flashes
they don't do well in crisis situations.
So we start off with the death of the Time Trapper. Now, I'm not going to lie. Like, even when I read this 26 years ago, I didn't know who that character was. It didn't really impact like my
view of the story, how it kept going.
I don't know whether you knew Time Trapper.
I did not know Time Trapper. I just chalked it up to, it was a big cosmic event. Cosmic being dies, and I went, okay.
Exactly.
I've been here before. I got this.
And so time is starting to unravel, be taken apart from at first it seems like from the end backwards. Mm-hmm. At this point it seems like it's from the end.
They're at the end of time, and it's being sent backwards to swallow up all of the past, which for us is the far distant future right now, but it's looming presence. It's coming towards us.
I thought this was a cool page in that Metron went to Darkseid, and Darkseid's like, he's so egotistical. He's like, I would have known that this was going on.
Dark side. If someone's gonna end the world, it's gonna be him.
Yeah.
Like, end the universe. So of course, if he hasn't planned it, it's not happening.
Yeah.
But it also shows the gravity of the situation. Just that Metron would even be willing to like, hey, I need your help to Darkseid. Like that should have been a red flag to like, hey, there's a really serious problem because I would never in a million years ask for your help.
Yeah. And I just thought that interaction was really good. And then we go to another one. So at this point, Batgirl is Oracle, or Barbara Gordon is Oracle. She's been assaulted by Joker. She's paralyzed. So and now she's running around, and Joker's like, "Who are you?"
Right. wait a minute. This isn't where I left you.
Yeah. So we're starting to see the time anomalies. Things are not as we expect at this point.
Right. Something's off. Our heroes don't know what, but they know that that's not what it's supposed to be.
And even Bruce, when he encounters her, is very shocked and like, "Oh my God,
almost slips and gives the real name there,
yeah.
which is not a Batman move. He's very professional, but shocks him.
And Joker gets away, kind of like in a classic comic book style. He gets away on a helicopter.
Yeah. His flash grenade and flies off into the air while they're distracted naturally by somebody they thought to be wheelchair ridden, running about and looking younger. They've also noticed.
Yes. So at this point, we go to the outside of the time stream to the Linear Men and Wave Rider. I know you said you weren't familiar with Wave Rider.
No, the Linear Men and Wave Rider character were a new characters to me. Little bit of research, not too much. It's basically, if you ever read any type of big event thing, there's usually a group that protects a timeline or some like cosmic entity, whether for Marvel a lot of times it's Silver Surfer or
the Watcher,
Adam Strange or the Watcher, something like that. DC has their, they both have their own versions of that, so I kind of chalked it up to that. If you're a little bit familiar, not knowing the character doesn't ruin the story for you or take you out of it or make you very confused. They do a bit of a introduction to them, which I think was intentional for people who hadn't been familiar with the character to bridge that gap and let you know, hey, this is kind of who they are. We don't have time to do their whole backstory, but this is what they do, and this is who they are. This is why they're going to be important to the story. And
I told you before we started filming this one, Armageddon 2001 really ties into Wave Rider. It's a really, really good storyline, and that was actually their annual series for, I want to say 1991, so 3 years before this came out. I feel like annuals are better served if they have like a bigger purpose, like if all of them kind of tie together, and that very much was what happened for that. So there was the bookends 1 and 2, but then the actual annuals for each character, they were hunting down who the bad guy Monarch was going to be, which we find out later in this is kind of an important character.
Right.
So things are going awry, and they send Wave Rider back to the Linear Men, send Wave Rider to try and investigate things and see what's going on. Meanwhile, in the future, we have Wally fighting. Who was it?
Abra.
That's what I thought. Abracadabra. And the as happens with Flashes, like you said during crises, it is not not a good.
They always get there at the beginning when we don't know enough about anything yet, and they're always like, "You're fast. You can maybe stop this. Go ahead and try to outrun it."
Yeah. And they come up with an idea of like trying to create like sound wave or like.
It always makes sense. It's a good plan. It always makes sense. It's like, it's not they're just sending them out there to get destroyed, but there is a good plan. And he even says, like, I don't know if I can do that, but I'm gonna try because
I'm a hero.
That's who Wally is. He steps up to the plate and everything. He's a little nervous, but he does.
He has a legacy to live up to.
Right. He's got to
which is always big in DC. The
try
legacy.
To be in Barry's shoes, and he knows Barry obviously given the opportunity, he did do the same thing. So he's like, I can't not do it now and be a coward. I have to step up. And
so this is huge because Kadabra immediately goes, "Hey, we need that thing there."
Right? Yeah, I didn't. Well, he's trying. I mean, he's getting beat up, and he's like, "I'm telling you, I didn't do that. Like, it's not me. Like, we need to figure out what that is."
So him and Wally and Wave Rider all work together to try and come up with a solution. Only Wally gets the bad end of the stick, and this he gets sucked in. And all that's left of him is the uniform.
Yes.
Wave Rider, very distraught at this point. I forgot Rip Hunter's also helping at this point. You probably didn't know who Rip Hunter was.
I do know Rip Hunter.
Oh, you did know Rip
Hunter?
Because
the TV show Legends of Tomorrow has helped. That he kind of captains that ship to help reset the time stream and everything.
All right, so, I don't watch that.
So if anybody familiar with the CW TV shows, Rip Hunter plays the character in Legends of Tomorrow. So if you're familiar with that, same guy, looks a little bit different, less like tie and trench coaty and British, but same guy protecting the time stream.
So Wave Rider's really distraught at this time, and we go to the future where Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, is fighting on the right side, and
back in his costume that we'd last seen him throw off and say he's done with this.
And Wave Rider's like, what's
he doing here? And come to find out that I guess the people of that time were able to also bring people back from the past, and they brought and it's mentioned that they brought a younger version of Hal Jordan.
The still idealistic version.
From earlier in the past and younger in his career.
And he dies at this point.
Right. He also tries to, same thing, a good plan concocted, trying to stop the giant surmassing energy of entropy that's just coming through and just eating away at time. Has a good plan, tries to do it, and then him and I believe Rip Hunter as well get eaten up and get destroyed in there, and Wave Rider again is the only one able to get out of there in time with still Flash's costume in his hand.
So then we flash back to we come back to our current time, and Hawkman has separated into
every version of himself.
Yeah, and the funny thing I found about this was, this was 1994. 5 years later, Jeff Johns is still trying to fix the Hawkman character because there's all these different versions of him, and no matter, it seems like Hawkman is always kind of I know you like the current series.
I do like the current series. It's done pretty well, I think, with an address of definitely all of his history that's been done, with definitely a nod to what Jeff Johns did to kind of try to help centralize and hone in on the character. It's a really good kind of combination of both. If you like the reincarnation and if you like the Egyptian and the strong roots there, it definitely gives you both of those things. But he's a very complex character, and sometimes is way too
several different types of characters. It seems like sometimes also because the Egyptian thing and then the alien,
space alien, right? Yeah, they've kind of tried to. They've done a pretty decent job in this series of containing all of that into one character and still giving you a single guy that you want to root for and that you can support. And
this actually touches on something that I really like about all this, is that the DC universe is so tied together, in terms of where they've been, where they are, where they're going. It seems like a lot of the writers for DC really love the history of the characters, and they want to pay homage to the old stuff and still move forward. So, Green Lantern also shows up at this point talking to Superman. Superman gives this whole speech to all the heroes, hey, I need all your all's help.
Right. Metron's trying to gather everybody he can to help try to stop this, and Starkseid said, I don't have time for you. He's like, well, I don't have time for you either, because this is happening whether you help or not. So he's so with the help of Green Lantern, Metron is able to broadcast a image of Superman to everybody who is going to be needed, and lets them know, basically a call to arms, hey,
and since we
Superman, don't exactly know what we're up against, right? He's the best vessel to give that message, but I need your guys' help. If you could meet me in New York City, we're all going to try to come together and try to stop this thing.
And since he's Superman, they all show up,
right? Because of course, you gotta help Big Blue.
If he calls for help, you answer. I thought this was a great scene when they went to talk to the Spectre.
Yeah, you call him, he doesn't answer. He has no time for us in our foolish ways.
So they go to him and they talk to him, and they're like, hey, we need your help for this. Time is ending. This is big. We need a Spectre to end. His response, his quote is, your struggles with the laws of nature are of little matter to me. Yeah. Be gone.
He's like, I only help when evil people do evil things. If something is happening in the universe, that's not my job. I'm here to right wrongs from individuals and corrupt souls and take them to hell. I'm not here for the universe ending. So basically he said, sucks to suck, but get out of my office.
So the nuclear option declined.
Yes.
He's like, no.
The big gun said no.
So then we go back to Wave Rider. Wave Rider finds out about the history. This again touches on what I was talking about. He did not know about the crisis on Infinite Earths.
Right. And Rip Hunter kind of figures out it's connected, and as he's being pulled in, kind of yells at him, "Crisis!" and like, you need to figure this out. You need to investigate it back at their station, which is outside of time.
So he researches it, and he's like shocked that there used to be all these universes and that he didn't know about. And so again, if you have read Crisis on Infinite Earths, it definitely adds to like this. You don't have to have read it, but
it does help, and it gives you more of a complete sense of, like you said, it helps. The more you know about the DC universe, obviously, the more like little nuances you'll care about. Doesn't take you out of the story, doesn't ruin the story. It's still a good story.
They give you enough in the story to
and they bring back, and Wave Rider, I think, does a good job of summarizing kind of in the next few issues when he touches back on Crisis and what happens without you having to necessarily have been there. But like John said, it does help the more information you have. So if you have Crisis and you like that story, this will be a nice kind of add-on. The fact that they're referencing it and bringing it in, it's cool that they're building on itself.
So Wave Rider arrives in the DC present, and he delivers the message that Flash and Green Lantern are dead. Mm-hmm. So first we'll handle the Flash one because that's the first thing that he talks about. And
poor Jay.
Jay Garrick takes it really, really hard because
he's lost both his boys.
Yeah,
lost his son, lost his grandson, and he's still somehow, in which he even like references, like the fact that like we're all still here and all these young kids keep dying, and it really takes a toll on him.
So we end with the villain supposedly being revealed. At this point, like if you don't know the story, if you're reading it for the first time with zero baggage going in,
right,
Extant is revealed as the villain. At this point in time, Extant was a new character. So when I was reading this, like I said, 26 years ago, I was like, who's Extant?
Right.
And unlike now where you can go online and
Google stuff and figure out, you just had to accept it at face value.
Yeah. So, we had like Wizard Magazine and stuff, which did talk about some of the things that were coming around and stuff like that. I don't know if you know what Wizard Magazine was. So that was pretty much the go-to magazine for comic collectors at that point. They did interviews with the creators and the companies, and they had a lot of inside information. They would like put some in stuff as rumors, like, hey, this is what we're hearing, sort of thing.
Like a website before a website.
Yes, and you pretty much had to rely on that. So you said you read this on the DC app.
I did.
I will say that one of the things you kind of miss out on if you don't read if you're reading it that way instead of the comics, is the comics actually provided like a nice little reading guide, like which one to if you want to take a look at it also, just so you can see. Kind of a reading guide, like, hey, you may want to read this issue also, or that issue, and it says kind of like why it's somewhat important to the overall story. I know you're probably like, oh, this would have been so much. Right. So, like I said, I mean, the DC Universe app definitely is a good tool to read stories that you can't necessarily track down.
Right.
But it also isn't like the complete issue in terms of like the letters pages and all of that stuff.
Sure.
Would that have helped you?
It would. A little bit of context for some other things.
All right. So next we're going to move on to 0 Hour number 3. And so I also want to talk, well, first let's talk about the art. Like Dan Jurgens did the layouts, I'm assuming layouts, and then Jerry Ordway did the finished art. And I think that Ordway probably had a bigger part in it than that, because this looks more to me like Jerry Ordway's art.
Right.
Not flashy, but definitely like it tells an epic story, and
right.
He fits a lot of characters on the different pages.
Mm-hmm. And just the fact that it's the same layout and art team for the same thing, that always kind of irks me whenever you have, even in a series, if the art's constantly switching, it's hard to kind of like feel like it's the same story. Yeah. But definitely for a big event, you really want it to feel like it's the exact same thing going on. So the fact that he does all the art for all 5 of them really helps.
So the thing I like about Jerry Ordway is he makes the characters feel and look different. Where I feel like a lot of artists have a style, like this is what all my male characters look like. Right. This is what all my female characters look like.
Right. Everybody's got their own face in this book, and everybody feels uniquely them.
Yeah. So I just wanted to touch on that because Jerry Ordway is one of my favorite artists. I know a lot of people wouldn't necessarily list him as a favorite artist just because he is very like standard in terms of like his layouts and stuff, but I think he's a very, very good artist. Yeah. So we go back to Jay Garrick, and Jay is angry that he keeps surviving while
And the whole JSA, he's just mad at everybody. They're all old and they're still, young, and they get to keep living, and all these young heroes keep dying. And he's like, "We don't deserve this." And they're like, "Hey, shut up. We want to be next." And he's like, "No, what's wrong? Why do we keep living? We're so old. We don't deserve this."
So the JSA is there are some cool side moments in this also where the characters are talking to one another.
Mhm.
I won't go into all that because some of them are really cool. We're already hitting the major spoilers, no sense in
Right.
hitting the minor stuff also. But so they start dividing up at this point, like who's going to take on what. Like I said, Jay is still like upset that like you said, he lost his grandson at this point. Superman and Metron still going around trying to do what they can to fix things. They run into Impulse, who is from the future.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Hey, we're to help you," and he's like, "Well, I don't need your help, old man."
Right. Yeah, like, okay, maybe I'm here to help you. In typical Impulse fashion of like, I don't care about your help, and he literally says, "Take your help," and he's like, "You call me Kid Flash, like I'm gonna take that ass and shove it back up at you."
So here's where you get your answer about Time Trapper, and when I got my answer about Time Trapper, like I said a long time ago, about who he is. We get introduced to a new character. Again, when I was reading this more than 2 decades ago, I did not know who either of these characters were, Rock or Time Trapper. So it didn't mean much to me in terms of like their past or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but it told the story in terms of like what I needed to know. We also learned at this point that Power Girl in the present is getting ready to have her baby. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't know how important that baby was because I don't remember that.
It was a magical baby.
Yeah.
Apparently. Again, I don't know either, but that's pointed out that they're like, she's like, "Should you even be here?" And she's like, "I don't even know. This is like a mystical baby. Who knows what the rules are?" So you get a nice big splash page of everybody meeting up in New York.
Yeah, so when I was talking about Jerry Ordway's art, like, Jerry Ordway crams...
Look at that. And everybody looks different.
Yeah.
In a good way. Everybody looks uniquely them.
But he squeezes a lot onto a page. There's probably 40 characters on this page, on these 2 pages.
Yeah, at least.
So all the people are meeting in New York. Meanwhile, the JSA has gone to, I think, Vanishing Point, right? I think
it's the Vanishing Point.
Yeah, they went to a Vanishing Point.
Time stands still.
Yes, and they meet Extant, who we met at the end of the last issue.
And he is a jerk.
He's a very powerful jerk too.
Yes. Normally there's a build-up and like here I am and I'm going to talk to you about why my plans, and he just immediately attacks them and says, "I don't care about any of that. You're all pathetic."
So he hits them with what they call a chronal blast that immediately starts aging them and changing them. Meanwhile, Wave Rider and Hawk Girl, they kind of get reworked a little bit at this point.
Right.
They form into a new god, is how they phrase it. Right. Again, DC has been trying to fix the Hawkman backstory for almost 30 years at this point. Let's see what else happens at this point. So the new gods are also still trying to fix things.
Legion of Superheroes. It's kind of just little, like you said, little side notes of different clips of all of the more you know about the DC universe, the more characters you recognize. But everybody kind of throughout time and space and different places is starting to realize that something is off. The people who weren't called in to the meeting and didn't make the cut, they're still seeing things and going, I'm noticing, and really powerful beings like High Father, for anybody who's a big Jack Kirby fan, and sort of like the opposite of Darkseid's character with the new gods and the good guys. He's, like saying that he's like genuinely scared because this is, then they said like, what, Darkseid? He's like, I'm not scared of Darkseid. He's like, but this is bad, whatever this is. Like, this we should all be afraid of. And it's kind of building up that sense of like, you should be reading this, you should know this, like this is a big deal. It's not just affecting like our present day superheroes, like it's affecting everything and everyone throughout time.
So the next scene is in the present again, and Guy Gardner finds out that Hal Jordan sacrifice himself in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you like this because of what he says.
Yeah, because he kind of mentions that, well, if Hal from the past died, then maybe we can fix it. When we fix this, the part where he goes crazy and everything, like we can save, like he says, we can save Coast City, we can save Hal, like we can save the whole Green Lantern Corps.
And that's very important.
At the time, it's nothing. Like right now, there's no Green Lantern Corps, as we talked about in Emerald Twilight. Like all the Guardians are dead. The Corps is gone because there are no Guardians or to establish a Corps. And Guy Gardner right now is not a Green Lantern either. He's under a new alias as Warrior. But he's in that moment, normally he's always kind of a jerk and everything, like a lovable jerk, but everybody associates him with that and not being nice. But his first thought is that he turns and he's like, like we can maybe save Hal, like we can save everything, like we can make this right.
Which is important to the future of the series,
right?
Like because this is a important crux part for this series. So there's still all these anomalies running around also. I thought that was interesting that Saturn Girl was in the middle of this, and she's also was in the middle of Doomsday Clock. I thought that was like a good callback. Jeff Johns loves DC history, so he I don't think that was accidental. I think that was probably...
No, I think he does everything intentionally.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely an homage.
So we see Extant fighting the JSA, and it is not good news for them.
No, they're not doing well.
He sucks all of the magical energy from around them, and they immediately age to what they were supposed to be.
Right.
Only one person seems kind of not touched by that, and that's Green Lantern Alan Scott. He keeps his youth and his power ring, although he is depowered, it says.
Yes, he takes away his ring's charge immediately with just a blast. And other people, with, of course, being aged up, some of them he kills outright with their power because at that point they're too weak to do anything about it. And then they're kind of saved by the skin of their teeth a little bit. Like you said, Alan Scott jumps in because he's not affected for whatever reason, but then he's immediately drained of all his power.
And Wildcat has a heart attack. Like you said, some of them die outright.
Wave Rider kind of senses there's a problem, tries to jump back, but realizes once he gets there that Extant's already done his damage.
Metron's telling them, like, hey, like, this is getting worse and worse. More of the future is dying. And then Extant reveals himself to Wave Rider. And I will tell you, when I read this part all those years ago, this was shocking to me. I don't know how shocked you were when you...
I mean, it was pretty shocking. You don't expect to see that when someone takes their mask off.
Yeah.
Usually. So
Extant removes his mask, and Wave Rider is underneath the mask. The interesting part about this is it's actually in like the next issue or the issue after that, wherein like you see how this happened.
The explanation.
Yeah. Why. But chronologically, it still happened after.
Right.
After this. So the Extant is like, hey, trust me, I know how all this is going to go. I know like where you've been. I know where we're going. Like, just trust me, sort of thing.
Right, because I'm you.
Which again is echoed later on with the big bad revealed. Obviously, I'm sure most of you know who that is, but and again, something that probably would have helped Chandler, a little reading list at the
tidbits
at the end of issue 3. So issue 2, we're counting down. We have 3 more issues to go. Chandler's reading what he missed right now. So Wave Rider is shocked that the Extant is him, because Extant is Monarch and Monarch is Hawk. And again, all that is revealed in Armageddon 2001. We'll have to review that sometime because, like I said, I really enjoyed that storyline. We won't read all the annuals. I'll figure out which ones were the important ones. We'll read the bookends and the couple that were very important. But because I think there was like 50 tie-ins.
It's a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot of times.
That would be a very long video. It took us 50 minutes to review 3 issues last week, and I'm sure we're going to go probably an hour 15 on this one.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he has this little back and forth with Wave Rider and Extant. Both he and Alan Scott flee back to the past, to the current DC universe. Extant seems not to really care because he knows what has to happen in order for...
Right, and he puts back on his mask and goes back, and we find that he's not working alone, and there's some other people lurking in the shadows.
Yes.
He's sort of like, this hasn't even started yet. Like, now my plans are going into action.
Meanwhile, in the DC present, they're trying to still get together their strike force, so to speak. We'll skip some of these pages. I mean, they're important, but I figure we probably want to touch more on like the major things on the in the series or in the miniseries. So the JSA comes back and like everybody's struck by what happened to them, that they're all elderly now, and Jay Garrick again seems like, why are we still doing this?
Right.
Like,
he's kind of lost his will to super. And they leave because several of them need hospitalization. And
Jay rips off his lightning bolt. He's like, I'm done.
Alan takes off his ring, even though it's not broken. It's just out of charge, and he takes it off and drops it.
He said, "You're the only Green Lantern now."
Right.
So this was really important at this point for Kyle Rayner, because unlike the other Green Lanterns, like, hey, if you have a problem before this, if you had a problem, like, okay, well, there's 3,000 more, 4,000 more that I can call on. Now he is the Green Lantern.
The only Green Lantern. And then Jay's like, that's a good idea. And he rips off his Flash symbol and drops it. And so there's that image of them removing, their symbol of who they are as a superhero and just dropping it on the ground and leaving it.
Well, for me, so I want to touch on a lot of this right now, like in terms of legacy has always been very important to DC, always. So the fact that Alan Scott is giving like Kyle Rayner the ring, like, hey, this is you, man. This is all you. It felt like very, very important.
Right,
like,
it's a big deal.
And we'll see something else in a future issue. I won't get to that yet, but we see something in the future dealing with the Flashes and stuff like that as well. Again, so then we have Green Lantern or Alan Scott and Jay Garrick walking off, and I know at this point, like, the characters are kind of like, JSA just walked off. Like,
right. And some people, some young people are like, whatever. And Superman's like, hey, watch your mouth. Like, those guys like started this, like, show some respect. Like, they pointed the way. And now we're going to pick up where they left off. Like, they're not quitting. Like, they've done their time. Like, they earned this. Like, nobody's going to say anything bad about them.
But it also feels like monumental. You feel like the heroes are kind of giving, like, the old guard is giving up.
Right, they're passing the torch right in front. Normally it just kind of happens, but they're physically still alive, and they're literally saying, like, we can't do this anymore. Like, it's up to you guys.
Yeah, we can't keep dealing with all these traumas. And
it takes a toll, and our time is up.
So we go to the future, and, Superman, Wonder Woman, Captain Atom, Metamorpho, characters that you may not necessarily be as familiar with, also like Saturn, the Legion people, Lightning Lad,
Outsiders,
mm-hmm.
They're fun groups.
They're all trying to stop things from happening. Jay Garrick once again goes to Spectre, he says he's going to the Spectre to try and like appeal to him one more time.
Right.
We again see Power Girl going into labor. Extant is visiting the Linear Men. Like, hey, I've taken
two of them trapped in stasis, kind of using their power and preventing them from getting involved and doing anything to stop him. The heroes get ganged up by the people we find out
the Team Titans.
The Team Titans, who are working for Extant and are composed of characters who either didn't exist or were from parallel dimensions, and even some of them that they recognize, and they're like, why are you wait, it throws everybody off, like, why are you fighting us? Like, I know you, like, what's going on, like, what's happening? And they don't listen to reason very much. They just keep fighting. So
Extant shows up, but it's not the same Extant that we have seen up until this point. So this is what we were talking about from the last issue in terms of this is Hawk from Hawk and Dove, and he hasn't absorbed Wave Rider's power yet.
Right.
So this scene has to happen in order for Extant to be who he is in the other issues as well. So he attacks Wave Rider. He absorbs him, and becomes that guy. Kyle Rayner dropped the ring that Alan Scott had handed him.
And he kind of as he takes off all of the Wave Rider's power, then he leaves, and then we see a blank page with just the ring, and a mysterious hand reaches down and says, like, this would be a shame to leave behind. Like, there's a lot of legacy here, and picks up the ring.
Yes.
And we're like,
clues.
What's that hand? Who's that person?
So in the future, Superman and, like we said, the Outsiders, everybody fighting to try and keep it all in line. They think that they succeed, but sometimes appearances can be deceiving. And again, we see Guy kind of like, we can fix things. History can be rewritten. The future can be rewritten.
Right.
We can make it better. Extant is shocked because this is not how he remembers things happening.
Right. Because
his plan in the future has been ceased, and he's like, wait, that's not what happens. So the entity that we saw grab the Alan Scott ring shows back up at that point, and he's like, well, I need to make sure things still happen the way that they have to happen.
Right. He's like, I couldn't let this ring vanish, but then as symbolically as he picked it up, he drops it again, and he steps on it and crushes it and said, but, I didn't want this to vanish, but there's no need to be reminded of the past because that universe is going to be no more.
When was the last time we saw a Green Lantern ring get stepped on and crushed?
That's a good question. It's a little while ago.
And again, we see another, like I said, another
series of, if you want to find out more about your favorite hero, join into this issue coming out next month.
Do you think that they should add that to the DC app?
In 1994. I think if they were able to find a way to collect it together, sort of like a compendium, where I know obviously they do and they sell those and everything, but it would be nice to have a little bit of the tie-ins, or even if that's like, I know they have a further reading thing, but it's usually just more of a broader sense of like, well, if you like this, here's Crisis, or here's Doomsday Clock, or whatever. But it would be nice if they were like, like this happened around the same time, or this was like a little tie-in, because none of these are like direct tie-ins, and like you said, like you can read this all the way through and not read them and you still get a complete story, but they are like interesting tidbits for specific characters and what happens with them. Since
you just said that, I will say, I know that's a constant complaint about people who read today's like massive crossovers. They feel like they don't get a complete story within the miniseries.
You kind of have to, if you don't get the tie-ins,
or at least some of them, not
some, right? But some of them, and they even say like in the book, like you need to read this. It'll have an asterisk, like, and you're like, what's going on? They're like, oh yeah, it was in this. You have to read that. It's like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, what do you mean I have to read that? I'm reading 1 through 5.
I will tell you, it's even worse for comic book stores when we have to order it, because like it says it's a tie-in, and it's always like,
right.
That book sells 10 copies.
Are people going to actually
do I bump it up 15 or do I bump it up to 50? Like,
right.
How important of a tie-in is it? And then,
it's frustrating for everybody.
It is, trust me. So then we move on to issue 1, or as you would call it, issue 4.
Right. And as you see, if you kind of notice, the nice thing about the books is if you go back to even like 3, you have a complete page. 2, we're starting to see the white space, which they've labeled entropy, which is the end of all thing and worse than death. And then as we got to issue 1, like John said, we kind of see there's a lot of that, and a lot of notable heroes are kind of fizzling out in the issue, which
almost
is
pixelated.
Kind of a bad look for our heroes right now, as they thought they had kind of stopped everything.
So again, the heroes are fighting Extant. And again, I know I'm kind of breezing through that, but there are important things being said. Like,
right, obviously there's a lot of the dialogue in here isn't wasted. Everything matters. And the more important thing going on right now is there's just pockets of kind of entropy that keep popping up at different points. It's not just sort of, before it was kind of like almost like a train tunnel. If the tunnel moved instead of the train lurching forward and eating everything, now there's kind of like pockets of it just showing up and taking in everything around it, sort of like a black hole. And before it was just, we had to go to the future to get it. Now it's kind of arrived at the 20th century, and just little pockets of it are showing up. So you kind of have to be aware of everything going on while you're also trying to stop the supervillain.
So things were going on in the individual issues at this point. Like Superman's parents were showing up. Batman, I want to say Batman's parents showed up also. I don't remember exactly, but I think that was one of the things.
In multiple different versions
of
him, and time anomalies and stuff like that. whole bunch of crazy because time is getting destroyed. So in that process, it's kind of time's freaking out. So like they said, there are time anomalies, and there's characters like Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, who's still there fighting alongside the heroes, and other characters who shouldn't really be there but somehow still are, and then other characters who are disappearing because they are not from this time, and wherever they're from has already been erased.
So Extant is feeling his oats. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm taking care of the good guys. I'm winning," but somebody's not happy with him.
Yes, somebody shows up, and in a flash of green energy, kind of knocks him down and is like, dude, you better get back in line. Like, you are not in charge here, and you know that. It's kind of like when you realize, somebody's sitting on the throne and they're saying all these things, and someone kicks in the door, like, what are you doing on my throne? Like, you're not actually in charge here. And we're like, oh, I thought that guy was the guy in charge. And then we find out that Extant is not in charge. He's sort of the being considers him just an underling. I guess he would consider himself like a right-hand man, but he's like, no, dude, like, you are a pawn. Like, you need to shut up and get back in line.
So Time Trapper shows up again, telling people, like, hey, I can protect you so much or whatever. First, he lets the Legion go out on their terms as opposed to being taken out by the Entropy. Mm-hmm. And then the big bad guy shows up to take care of the last time traveler he feels can stop him in his plans.
Green energy right in the back.
Green energy right in the back.
Splits him in half. No remorse.
So this is a scene you and I talked about before we started filming. I don't think this scene necessarily aged as well as like others. Captain Atom shows up when Wonder Woman is helping Power Girl give birth.
Who's a doctor.
Yeah.
And tries to offer a hand.
Yeah.
The woman's like, get out of here.
Yeah, well, the weird thing that she said was, "You're a warrior. You should be out on the front lines." And I was like,
right.
"You're
also a warrior." I think she kind of took it as like, if we're looking at it in a painted brush, and I'm giving Dan Jurgens the benefit of the doubt, I think he probably meant like, I have to be here to help her, but you don't, so you better be out there fighting because I can't right now.
No, I don't blame Dan Jurgens. I'm just saying. Like,
oh, right, but the line itself, it does have a little
doesn't age as well.
Not great
as
vibe to it, yeah. And meanwhile, we see.
I just feel it's important to talk about stuff like that, like in terms of.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying like don't read it. Oh, that this
right.
should be taken out of the story. So this scene, I feel, is very reminiscent of the end of Infinity War, like when Impulse is disappearing here.
Right, heroes are starting to fade out. All the ones, just the Legion is gone, and Impulse and Booster Gold both being from the 30th century. That part.
This one kind of echoes like
time stream,
like Spider-Man talking to Iron Man, though. Like,
I don't feel so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not just like they're gone type of thing, snap of the finger. It's like they're fading away, and they can feel it, and it's kind of seems painful almost. And they're both like, no, like this is, there's nothing they can do, and the heroes just have to stand and watch. They can't do anything to save them.
And he's not the only one that disappears. Like you said, a couple different. Booster Gold disappears.
The Legion's all gone. Everybody who's popped back in the time stream to help from the future, because their future no longer exists because the Entropy is caught up and has taken that out.
So it's like 2 issues later, and Jay Garrick finally gets to the Spectre because
he's a hard man to track down.
Well, he's also slow now because
That's true. He can't run very fast.
So he gets to the Spectre. The Spectre's like, yeah, I know. Now I'm going to take care of things because
there's a person who's doing this. At first I thought it was just nature, and I couldn't get involved, but now I'll get involved. And he's kind of angry at him, and he's like, you waited too long, and like you were fought with us, and he's like talking to the man who's the Spectre's Jim Corrigan, and the Spectre tries to tell him like, that guy's not here right now. Dead. He's gone. Like, I'm just like an entity. Like, I'm a cosmic
I am
being.
The wrath of God.
Right. Like, I'm not your friend. He's like, shut up, and you're gonna listen to this.
And then Jay Garrick disappears.
In an old man going out in style, he's like literally like
yelling at the wrath of God.
Right. And he says, like, your death won't be in vain. It's kind of like you said, it's a poignant thing. He's like, my death. What are you talking about? And then he starts to fade, and he's like, oh crap. And it's kind of like, like it's over, but you need to fix this. And then the Spectre vows right before he disappears that, his death will not be in vain, and he will honor his Jim Corrigan's old friends, and he will take care of the JSA, and he will right this wrong.
So Metron, his Mobius chair is gone.
Use that
Wave Rider
tried what they thought would stop everything, and it didn't work.
Wave Rider is gone. and they go to the Linear Men that they weren't worried about because they didn't have power. That Hal Jordan wasn't worried about because they didn't have enough power to stop him.
Right.
Now, at this point, I knew what was going on because I had read Armageddon 2001. Matthew Ryder is another alias of Wave Rider. So Metron knows this, and he uses that to create a new Wave Rider.
Better improved.
So now I will say that the scene the next scene that follows, where Starman passes on the baton, I don't know what happened between this and Starman Zero, because this is not the character who actually gets the baton. It's actually the other brother. It's not David. It's Jack who gets the baton.
It's awkward.
So,
Yeah.
so I never read.
Dad gave that to me, but here you go.
Well, I never read Starman. It had great reviews. James Robinson was the writer on it. It was a very big seller during that time period.
I know he's also become popular now because what's his face? Scott Snyder used him in his Justice League run, and Starman became a big sort of a new haircut, new stylistic look. But he, towards the end of his run, especially, had a very crucial part in saving them and the world kind of from Perpetua in the universe. So same Starman, different version, different of that, but same character.
Well, like I said, I didn't read it during that point, not because like I said, it had lots of positive reviews. It was selling very well. It just wasn't superheroes, and that's what I was mostly in at that point.
Right.
So I was like,
Right.
I may have to go back and read that though. Extant is back in line with the overall plan of whoever this other entity is that's pulling the strings.
Shows up for some more other cosmic beings that are trying to stop stuff, smites them out of the way.
He attacks some more heroes. Wave Rider shows back up.
It's new and improved form.
And then somebody punches Superman, and all the heroes are like, so I don't know about you, but that scene where like all of them are looking at where you don't see who did it, but
Right.
I mean, to me, it conveys the emotion very, very well.
Well, the fact that somebody hit Superman and that's like outrageous enough, like out of nowhere, but then the fact and that it hurt him, and then the fact that they all know who it is and they are like shocked and awe of who the person is.
And that is revealed to be Hal Jordan, but
They call Green Lantern. He says, "No,
That
that is
man's
not
dead.
my name. I am Parallax now."
So he says about how he has looked at the universe from different perspectives. He has seen all the different universes, and he is here to fix things. He knows how to fix things. What were your thoughts when? Well, obviously, like I said, you knew.
Yes, I did know about him turning into Parallax, so I did know the character, the arc there, but he definitely has a cool new outfit. So if you're used to the Green Lantern, the typical costume that he's rocking over here, he's no longer wearing that. He's got it's definitely still green and reminiscent, but it's definitely a breaking free of him saying, I'm not controlled. He's not wearing a ring. Like you said, he crushed the Alan Scott's ring. And he shows up, and it's kind of the same motive that he had when last we saw, that he was going to fix everything and rewrite the universe so that nothing bad happened and only good things are there. But he clearly has an immense more power than the last time we saw him.
And Ollie pleads with him, like, please tell me this is not you're not behind this.
Right, like you're not like all this stuff that we've been seeing, like you couldn't do, and that's what kind of him and other people are saying, like you couldn't do this, like there's no, like we know you, like there's no way you did this, and he's like, I did, but
trust me,
it's all according to plan, and you guys are too late because we're already at the 0 hour.
And again, we end with another nice
List,
you should probably read
list of things.
And then, like Chandler was talking about, issue 0, nice plain,
Nothing.
Everything's gone cover.
Silver sheen on the 0 hour.
Yes. And we even begin this issue with a blank page outside of a couple text boxes.
With Hal Jordan narrating some things.
Talking about his past. He's like, I used to be an errand boy. It was a thankless job. He talks about how I asked for one thing.
Yeah, I never asked for anything. Like, I knew it was a thankless job, and I was okay with that. But the one time I needed something and I needed help, they said no. So now I'm ruining everything.
Well, he doesn't think he's ruining.
No,
everything.
he never does. He thinks he's saving everything, and he's ruining to fix it. He's got to take it all out so he can build it back up.
So we'll stop here for 1 second. So before we started filming, I told you if this was a Marvel event, I feel like this would have been this part would have been different from this part forward. I feel like some of the characters who had bad things happen to them would have been immediately on Hal's side. Like it would have probably been like a Civil War type thing.
Split where some of the heroes go and the ones that stay can't believe the ones that left, and it's sort of there's a rift, and then afterwards, it's like, well, I don't know if I can trust you because you sided with, whatever. But
and we don't see that in DC until Identity Crisis, almost like 10 years later.
Yeah.
Where you start seeing those kind of rifts in the DC universe. Some people like that, some people don't like that. I'm torn on it. That story was great, but
it's a really great story in and of itself. The consequences and what stemmed out afterwards, and what happened with some of the characters and how they handled that is what's some people don't like about the issue, is that what stemmed out of it. In and of itself, it's it's written by an author who wasn't
Brad
even necessarily
Meltzer.
like a comic book writer, but like an actual
he loved comic books.
Yes,
but
he was a novel writer, but he loved comic books. But it was sort of his like first kind of jump into that, and he does a really, really good job for somebody who hasn't done it before. But being a novelist, he knew how to build a really great mystery and a story build up with those characters. But the fallout afterwards and what happened with characters, I think a lot of people didn't agree with, didn't like how that flowed. But that story is a really good
DC
story.
has always been a very black and white sort of thing. Like either you're on the side of good or you're on the side of evil.
He came there and painted it all gray for everybody for a while.
He did. And like I said, 0 Hour is still in that black and white world. But like, well, I mean, would you agree with me? Like in the Marvel universe, there would have been.
I think so. I think definitely there, and that's it. And it comes down to the different people in charge of both companies and the differences in the characters.
Yeah.
Where I think, like you said, especially at this time, DC was still very much like all the heroes are heroes and all the ones that are not. And if you're calling yourself a hero, but we don't label it to you, like we make that very known that like you don't associate with the other heroes. Like maybe you do good things, but you're not in this club. Like you're not in the Justice League. You're not with them. Everybody who's in there, they only do good. Like they don't, if the hard challenges come up, they make the right decision. They do the good thing. There's no gray area. And Hal Jordan, who is one of those people, has kind of taken that jump to where he sees as not even gray, as just like the only true form of good that he can be. But they all now have turned and see him as like, nope, like you're a bad guy now. Like you've gone completely to the dark side, if you will, and taken that jump where the heroes can't follow him. It's not that middle ground. It's not even that gray for them. They're like, you're already gone. Like I can't.
Well, they say you're acting like a god. You're trying to be a god. We're rewriting history and stuff.
He's like, just let me.
So he does appeal to some people, but they're the ones from different timelines. And the weird thing to me in this was the DC universe that we're familiar with. Those heroes act like only their timeline mattered, which makes you kind of like not necessarily identify with Hal Jordan, but like, well, why does your timeline matter
more than other people's timelines? Right. And there's definitely, like, most notably Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, who is, not the one from their timeline, and
she's not paralyzed.
A couple other people who are just not necessarily saying that they agree with him, but they just kind of
I don't want to die.
He brings them and they sort of are hearing him out, and they're like, well, what are you saying? And they're like, if we don't do what you're doing, like we're not going to exist anymore. The only person from the actual current main DC that comes with him and listens to him is Guy Gardner, who again, as we found before, is still trying to kind of bring back the old Hal, and he's kind of seeing that that's a losing battle right now for him.
So he starts on that side, but almost immediately he's like, wait, Extent's on your side, and that makes him the bad guy.
I can't work with this guy. Which is no surprise to anyone. Guy Gardner does not work well with others, but certainly not with bad guys. But they're like, well, how can you even do this? And he's like, oh, you mean this? And just like creates...
But Hal's trying to explain to him also, like, look, all those people that died up to this point, don't worry about it.
Right. They'll be back.
I'm going to bring them back. And you said he had like an Oprah Winfrey moment. If you
Yeah,
want
where
to,
they're like, well, what about me? And he's like, yeah, your world's gonna be back too.
you get a
He's
universe.
like, all these worlds have been,
You get a
again,
universe.
touching on Crisis, where all of the universes and the different parallels got blended together. He's like, I can bring that back. Like, he's like, wouldn't it be great? Like, he even tells Guy, who's like, I don't, he's like still trying to hear him, but he's like, I don't know, man. Like, this does not feel right. Like, I want to trust you, but it doesn't feel good. And he's like, wouldn't it be great if the JSA had their own world again, where they could just live and never die and be young and fight crime forever? And he's like, that does seem good. And for Barbara, he's like, yeah, like, you have your own world where like you exist and that terrible thing never happens to you, and you get to be Batgirl and you get to always save the day. And he says to everybody, and some of them just immediately go like, yes, like, I get my version of this back, or I get this. And when there's Extant who wants it for power and other reasons, but then that's where Guy's kind of like, well, that does sound really great, but if he's on your side and you're like supporting, like, this can't be good if that guy is willing to be a part of this. Like, I can't be a part of this.
Well, like you said, the Oprah Winfrey thing. You get a universe,
yes.
and
you get a world, and you get a world, and you get a world. We might even have to make a couple universes. And he's like, I can do it because I have the power.
And I think I've talked to you about this before. I'm not for all these multiple universes. I prefer there be one continuity. I don't like I didn't like when Grant Morrison brought back like the whole 52 universe.
52.
I don't.
52.
And I know sometimes it makes it sound like I don't like the current. I do like the current stuff also, but I like strict continuity. Like I said,
right.
like,
It's easier to follow when everything is on the same page in the same space.
Exactly. Well, it feels more epic and stuff also. Like, things matter. When you have 52 universes, it feels like things are a little less consequential. And kind of like time travel. That's why I don't like time travel. I know this is all time travel in this one, but
right.
To me, I felt like there was more emotional stuff in this one than there.
Sure.
So, just to clarify, because I know people know I hate time travel with a passion. So, like I said, they try and coerce like some of the heroes into joining them. Very unsuccessful. Even Batgirl joins Batgirl and Alpha Centurion join him at first, only to Batgirl at least changes her mind. She's like, "Oh, I can't do this after all."
Right.
And I feel bad, like, for Hal Jordan.
But there's some nice splash pages of him with almost like an evil grin if you look at it in the right light, but a different grin where he's just talking about it, and it's again, it makes him different than other where it's just a straight up evil characters, because we know all the history before, and he says,
well, he's also not doing it for money. He's not doing it for vengeance.
He's doing it to help everyone. Like he says, like, everybody wins if I do this. Like, there is no bad for me to do this. Like, if you just let me do this, everybody wins. Everybody's back. There's no pain. Everything everybody's lost is back. Like, I can make it correct. I can make it how everything
make everybody
should
happy.
Be. Yeah, and that's what he says multiple times. Like, everybody wins. Like, if you just let me do this.
And I told you before we start filming this, if I were Hal Jordan, I would have made the argument like, well, didn't we all destroy like multiple universes back in Crisis?
Right. Haven't we already played God? Why is it a problem now?
And your statement was, oh, because you're not Superman,
right? Like, because you are playing God, Hal. We don't want you to do it. When it's all of us, it's different. If it was Superman, it's different. But you're not playing.
And I do want to make that clear. I'm not going to lie. There are plot holes in the story, in terms of like how it would play out. I'm not talking about like people acting out of character. I'm just talking about like how the time stream and stuff would work. But to me, comics are bigger than like. Sometimes you have to look over stuff like that. Like, it's more important about the journey of the hero, the journey
and the
of
personal story about what's going on,
exactly.
The actual minutia of the time.
Yeah, because like I said, I love to write, and like I can clearly see the plot holes and stuff in it, but to me, it didn't affect the pleasure I got from the story. I don't know whether you felt the same way or not.
I would agree.
All right, we'll wait until. So going back to what you said. He even tries to appeal to Superman, like, what if your planet didn't blow up? What if Krypton was still here?
Superman's just, no. all the big heroes are just, no. If Batman's already dead, but if he wasn't, he would have been like, no.
Yes.
You don't get to play God, Hal. We only get to do it all together at the same time. So
someone shows up going, foul murderer.
Guess who it is? Spectre's here, and he's pissed.
I think these pages are awesome. The ones the ones that he drew of the Spectre fighting like Parallax and Extant.
Brings out the chains to wrap him up in, him and Extant, the Wrath of God coming out super pissed off.
But even Spectre cannot fully hold Hal Jordan.
Right, because of how powerful he is now.
Hal is legit, like, serious cosmic trouble at this point. And this is one of the reasons why I get angry that Jeff Johns took him off of the board as a bad guy and absolved him of everything. I know you and I had talked about this like years ago, like when you first started as a subscriber and everything, when you were getting into these characters. Do you start to see why I felt?
Yeah, it's a lot of character development. It's a lot of, especially from where where he started, whereas people didn't really care about him too much, to just kind of like everyman space cop, to he really had depth as a character, and then we see it kind of all by his own will taken away from him to become this giant, almost like this cosmic being that's like fighting the Spectre like head on and kind of winning a little bit.
I would say not kind of winning. He won. He took him down. Now, he is distracted at this point. This is when Batgirl has her change of heart.
Right, and realizes that,
she has to be a hero.
Even if it does, end with me not existing, like, this is the right thing to do.
And this goes back to what I was saying about Marvel would have had a totally different standpoint at this point. I think that the characters who stood by Hal would have continued to stand by Hal. Maybe even if Hal died at the end of this, we haven't gotten to that point yet. But if he had died at the end of this, there would have been
still would have stayed with
there would have been a cult of Hal that was like, we need to fix the
universe.
Yeah, which I think would have been a cool idea. But
somebody called Dan Jurgens. We got a 26-year.
Yeah, we need to go back in time and fix the time stream. So Hal's distracted because of
and they have mentioned that it's draining some of his energy. So obviously when you fight the Spectre, like, it takes a lot out of you.
It takes a toll.
He's also fighting, Wave Rider. There's also other things going on.
There's hundreds of heroes.
Yeah, so he's getting hit kind of from all sides. He's not down by any means, but he is weaker than he was when
Kyle Rayner.
What a guy.
Grabs him from behind.
Gets him in the old headlock.
Giving a person a shot at Hal Jordan.
But not before Hal Jordan tries to take out the kid who's trying to overpower him, and Batgirl...
Oh, actually, yeah, I guess we should mention...
Saves the day.
So there's a new character, Damage, that appears during this. You probably didn't...
Not to be confused with the Damage that just came out 2 years ago. I don't know.
So you probably didn't know who Damage was.
No, that was a guy.
Yeah, he could blow up in short bursts, and he was kind of like a...
So they're feeding him all the, Captain Atom, Wave Rider, they're all feeding Wave Rider all their energy, and he's channeling it into Damage to make an explosion. And obviously, even distracted, Hal sees this, and he's like, no, you're not going to stop my plans. I'm going to blast you. And then
Batgirl sacrifices herself.
Jumps in the way. And that's kind of too much for one Oliver Queen, who sees this and just goes...
Well, in the earlier issues, he says, like, I see a lot of you in me.
Yes, he was very fond of the new Batgirl. Like, her spunk, as he calls it. He was a big fan of that. And then seeing her get killed by Hal, who in his own admission is his brother, like, it's a little too much, and he sees that he's got to do something because of this point. And again, which usually, like he says all the time, I'm a guy with a bow. Like, what am I going to do? Like he says, he hates being, which is, I always think is really funny. And you kind of need one of those characters who doesn't really have powers in a giant cosmic thing. Cause he's like, what am I going to do? Like, I have a bow and arrow. Like, how am I going to help here?
I can shoot boxing gloves at people.
Right. Like what am I really going to do with like the whole cosmic and time space continuum flipping open? But that moment where he sees her, and he holds her body as she's dying, like he kind of realizes he can't just sit on the sidelines anymore.
One of the growth moments for Kyle Rayner, though, grabs Hal from behind to hold him while his best friend, Ollie Queen, pulls back the bow, pulls back the arrow, and unleashes it at his best friend, taking out both Kyle and Hal Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Damage explodes. Turns out he is the Big Bang for the DC universe. All the energy he unleashes kind of kind of resets the DC
Right.
universe.
Fresh start.
All the heroes are. So we go through like a brief like time,
Catching back up to itself.
how things have been rewritten, and the heroes are celebrating. I'm gonna skip some of the stuff because, like I said, we don't want to ruin
It's a lot of just minutiae.
So this is the part that we talked about. Power Girl has her baby. They're all like, "Oh, look, everything's happy." One person gets very agitated that they're.
Well, Jay, kind of says, all of this has just been about death. Like my friends are dead. I'm an old man now. Like we quit. And then Wonder Woman and Power Girl are like, no, like there was some good, and like we saved the day and everything, and like there was good to this. And then Oliver's kind of like, yeah, right.
I killed my best friend.
Right,
Thanks,
like
people.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are happy. And there's really the whole last several block in that whole page of just him, where everything is, the one side is bright and colored and filled, and it's just him in the dark, which kind of just both him walking into an unlit room and just how he's just feeling and just
destroys
lost in
his
the
bow
dark, and walks out of the room, smashes his bow on the wall, and kind of, it would appear, hangs up his time as Green Arrow, and sort of throws his fist into the air in rage of just the fact that he had to murder his brother and best friend and can't do it anymore. Just completely breaks him.
So again, we were talking about like the bonus things in the individual issues. This one also has a bonus thing. Try not to. Has a fold out going over all of the history of the new DCU after 0 Hour, like how things have been redone. I did want to go back and talk really quick about one thing that I find funny from issue 4. If I can find it really quick. Issue 1, the 4th issue. Making the same mistake that Chandler did in the reading of it. If I can't find it, I'll just go over. I may not be able to find it. So I think it was issue 1. It was either issue 1 or issue 2. It uses one of the phrases that is very big in the 90s. I think the late 80s and early 90s. If anybody knows the first time it was ever used, let me know, because I want that comic to hang up on my wall. And it's gonna sound goofy and stupid, but it's fine. I think it was Guy Gardner who said it in the issue, but a phrase that was used often during that time period was "hit 'em hard and hit 'em fast." It cracks me up every time I see it, because like it was in so many comics at that time period. That was like what a leader said in every.
It's the go-to whenever you get in the big battle.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm sure it sounds goofy. I'm sure you're laughing at me too, but like when I started reading and everything, that's
when comics were really comics. When you hit them hard and hit them fast.
Like that was lazy storytelling and lazy leadership in the comic book. But
if it works, it works.
It still amuses me to no end. I want whatever. I don't even know which one was the first one, but I want to know which one was the first one. So if anybody, like I said, if anybody knows which one that is, tell me. I want that issue. So we have now covered the second part of Hal Jordan's Fall. What did you think of 0 Hour overall?
I think overall, like I said, it was a good story. That last issue in particular was really good, and I felt kind of pieced together, where if you had to just pick like a standalone issue, you kind of want the last one to be the one that really stands out and really has that powerful that holds with you even after you finish. I think again it was definitely a further step of Hal's character development and everything that we see kind of going on with him, and essentially at the end of this, we
didn't talk about the one part where Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner are apparently like gone.
Yes, everybody who was there except for those two, Wave Rider was able to grab and kind of pull them out of the time stream as time was being rewritten. But because of the blast of energy, Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner got knocked too far out that he said he could not reach them, could not save them. So
he didn't even sense like their energy or whatever.
He didn't know anything about them or if where they are. He believes them both to be dead. He doesn't know anything about them. You find out more about that in Green Lantern Zero. There were several Zero issues that tied into that one. That one, I think, if you had to read one to tie into that one, Green Lantern Zero is, which I read afterwards, is very important for their storyline, for Hal and Kyle, to see what happened afterwards. But we go from a guy who was one of the Justice League, big hero, to being killed by the Justice League, and then dies kind of in their eyes for sure as a villain. So it's definitely it's an important story. Like it's a powerful story. It changed a lot of things.
So I want to talk about two things from this, like their impact on the future. I'm sure since like you started like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you could see echoes of Rebirth in terms of it didn't restart the universe. It took old parts and new parts, and it was kind of like a soft reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Like the writers could take whatever parts they wanted to keep using, and so to me it felt kind of like that. I don't know whether you agree.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It wasn't like a giant, this changes everything now, which was great because you don't really want that. If you've been reading stuff for a long time, you don't want what you've been reading to just be completely erased. But
so people who started with New 52, like they didn't want all that stuff
right,
to be gone.
Right. But it didn't. It definitely. But it just brought back the stuff that was kind of erased by New 52.
Yes. And then for those of you who don't know, Joe Quesada was drawing the Ray and Azrael and stuff like that around this time. So he, I think he probably learned a lot from this in terms of when he took over Marvel, like when he became the EIC. One of the things he immediately did was like, hey, we're going to do this like movies once a year. We're going to have a big tentpole event. And because DC kind of had like these big events, they weren't yearly, but I would say every other year, maybe every third year of growing things. And I think that maybe not consciously, but maybe subconsciously, he absorbed all that and like, hey, these big events like have a lot of like pathos and stuff to them. Like
right.
they resonate with the readers. People want to see these epic characters and epic stories that like not just like on the smaller scale, but on the larger scale. And like we talked about, I think that if Marvel had done this one, we would have seen a slightly different event,
right.
At least at the end. But like I said, this was one of the big storylines for me when I started reading. This was probably the second or third year I was reading comic books, and this was like the first major event that I read, and I was like, oh my god, every issue was very, very important to me. And but so that's stage 2 of the Fall of Hal. I think the next one we will cover is Final Night. And there are a lot of things in between these. I think Final Night was 1996 or 97. So 2 years after this, again, following what I said about every 2 or 3 years, something big happening. Do you know anything about Final Night?
I don't.
Oh, good. Then I think you'll enjoy what went on. So that's it for episode 2 of the Fall of Hal Jordan. We probably have 3 more to go. Like I said, we'll do Final Night next one. We'll do I forget what it's called. Day of Judgment after that, and then we'll do Green Lantern Rebirth, the least favorite of mine. But we will talk about that as we get to it. All right, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and see you next time.